none of us, if you're a human, require the consumption of dead flesh or the breast milk of another species. Yeah.
It always kind of was weird. Like, who's the first guy that looked at a cow like looking at a calf, like suckling, like, nah, I'm gonna push this calf out of the way and I'm gonna get in on this. Hey Jackson, I'm John, man.
John, nice to meet you.
Where can we get non-animal sources of vitamin B12?
B12?
Yeah.
Well, do you know where the B12 in the animal foods you eat comes from?
No.
Okay, so we actually feed B12 supplements to the animals.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So as a vegan, I just take either a B12 supplement or I eat foods that are supplemented with B12.
How do they manufacture the B12? Because I've heard you got to be careful with your supplements if you're trying to be vegan, because some are sourced from animals and others I think are sourced from like a fermentation process.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, so do you know what B12 is?
Not fully.
Okay, yeah, most people don't. I didn't until I looked into it. B12 is a bacteria that's found in the natural environment. It was a little bit more readily absorbable before we had industrial practices and we had pesticides. Now we've like over purified our food and stuff because we have to rinse it and wash it off. But we used to, when we were evolving, get B12 from just drinking water out of the stream or pulling a plant out of the soil, and we'd eat the carrot, and it would have the B12 in the soil. But no longer is that bacteria quite as readily available because we've overly purified things because of industrial practices.
So wait, is the B12 actually the bacteria, or does the bacteria produce the B12?
I believe the B12 is the bacteria itself. It's a bacteria that lives in the soil and water. So yeah, we can't really get it like the way we used to. So yeah, I mean, you can be conscientious. A lot of people just use a B12 spray and they just spray it on their tongue once or twice a day and they're good to go. But I drink almond milk, and almost all milk is fortified with B12. Yeah, and I get more than 100% of my daily.
Yeah, the milk like alternatives, like they try to match pretty closely to like regular milk, like what's in there. But they also they add a whole lot more of the B vitamins in it. It seems what I found, which is it's dope for
and it's super easy. And there's a lot of foods out there that are fortified with B12 that I won't even realize till later in the day. Like, oh, I didn't even know is that B12 in it.
So like what made you decide to go vegan?
A few years ago, I was watching an interview with Moby, the musician. Moby, he's a vegan and activist, and they in the interview showed a few minutes of slaughter footage, and I had never really taken like an in-depth look at that. And then juxtaposed with the slaughter footage, they talked about how even though we're social omnivores, we're actually not biological omnivores. We don't depend biologically on the intake of these products. We can be perfectly healthy on a plant-based diet.
Especially in a modern civilization context.
Exactly.
Like way back in the day, probably a little harder to solely be a vegan, but I mean.
Totally.
And especially getting all the nutrients. Well, of course, you say the bacteria was more readily available back in the day.
And the reason we are, more biological herbivores is because we evolved for the most part. If you look back at bone evidence of our ancient ancestors, they were eating like a 90 to 98% plant-based diet. So there was never like a biological dependency on meat constantly going and eating meat. It was more of like a communal cultural thing. There was like a guy's night out. We'd go out hunting and there would be a teamwork, incentive there. And it was like once a month, maybe once every 6 months, depending on where they lived. If they were in Arctic regions, obviously they'd probably go out more often for those hunting sessions.
Arctic, you gotta hunt.
Right. But it was such a small blip in our entire span of our human evolution that none of us, if you're a human, require the consumption of dead flesh or the breast milk of another species.
It always kind of was weird. Like, who's the first guy that looked at a cow like looking at a calf, like suckling, like, nah, I'm gonna push this calf out of the way and I'm gonna get in on this. Like,
it was, I think they'd actually just found like the first humans that had started consuming dairy, and it was people that had migrated north, and they decided to migrate because they wanted to see what was out there in the world, and they got to the north and they realized there was no plant foods available, and so they started drinking the breast milk throughout the winter to try to get their fats. But even then it wasn't good for them. You look at the healthiest ancestors, and it was like the Okinawans practiced a 96% plant-based diet, and they were by far the healthiest that we found of
Okinawans. Don't they also consume fish too?
Yeah, they had a little bit of fish. That was the other, but it was again so few and far between that we actually see the result in their health and in their bone evidence.
There's this one guy, I forget the name of him, but he's quoted as saying like the healthiest diet you can eat is eat food, not too much, mostly plants. Like, that's kind of, and I agree with that totally, but the B12 is what does worry me. But I believe there are like fermentation, or you can cultivate B12 in a lab, not sourcing any animal products.
Yeah, and that's where, I mean, anyone that eats animal products is getting their B12, not because the cow just miraculously creates B12 like magic, it's because we force feed it to them. We inject it into them, and so you might as well, and then you're filtering it secondhand through the dead flesh of an animal, whereas you could go straight to kind of the more pure source and either get the supplement or have it fortified in a plant-based object or a product. Yeah.
Okay.
Next, any nutrients we're getting from, for example, eating the dead flesh of an animal, it's all filtered through that. Animals originally eating plants to get those nutrients.
Yeah.
So you might as well just cut out the middleman, go straight to the plants and get the whole source of the nutrients.
Yeah, I think it goes into a whole new thing. Yeah, like the microbiome too is like so insane. Like we didn't have I'm not sure the bacteria, but we can't produce vitamin E, but like in our colon, there's a bacteria that can source vitamin E to us, and like we wouldn't get it without bacteria. Like bacteria is insane, and like there's a whole lot of like new research coming out about the microbiome and how very influential it is on like behavior, on mood, on just all sorts of things. Like the vagus nerve communicates with the stomach to the brain, and your microbiome in your stomach can alter like
brain function.
Produced.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just
it's fascinating.
And yeah, to have a healthy microbiome, plant-based fermented foods, like that's what you gotta. Because like plants right out of the ground, especially growing in your own backyard, you're gonna have a lot of microorganisms on there that are in general good for you. And then of course, like fermented foods are always a good thing to eat to get that shit. I don't know, I've been rocking a lot of kombucha lately. But.
Okay, nice. Yeah, I saw a study. If you want a resource, I have all the most up-to-date health and stuff right here. And then if you want to know about the ethics and environmental effects of trying a plant-based diet, that's always helpful. But yeah, there's a lot of new research coming out that talks about how you don't necessarily need to have straight-up kombucha. But if you do, it's recommended to have small amounts because too much fermentation can offset, the chemical balance in your gut biome.
One day I did have a little too much.
You did?
I got some crazy shits.
That's funny.
I was like, okay, maybe we need to take it back because it's like the GTs is just it's so good. Like it's delicious.
I used to love that. Yeah.
It's like low carb, and it's just I've been replacing like diet soda with
I was just gonna say it's a great substitute if you're moving from soda. Yeah, it's got the fizzy pop, it's got the sweetness.
And I like it's more complex than like soda though too, because you got the sour, the bitter kind of like fermented. Yeah. I saw I'm a bit of an alcoholic, so I'm like, ooh, yeah. That tastes
it's like kind of like a hard cider type thing. It's really good.
But yeah, still really low alcohol content. Except for the black bottle GTs, I think they have like 1 to 2%, something like that. But then the clear bottles are like less than 0.5%.
Right. I know in some places they made it illegal for like people under drinking age to get kombucha.
No. Actually, for like the black bottle kombucha, you got to be 21 to get that. But the white bottle or the clear bottle GT, that anyone can buy that. But yeah, it's pretty crazy.
No, it sounds like you're well researched, man. You know a lot about it.
I took microbiology last semester, so that got me like really interested in the microbiome and trying to change my own, even though I'm still omnivoring it up. I just got done eating nachos and Akataka carne asada.
Right.
But like I know better, but it's hard. It's kind of hard to pull away from that meat, even though I know the atrocities and how bad it is for the planet in general, and like how much. Like all the grazing land for cattle and shit, assuming they get grazing land or raised ethically or whatever. It's taking up spots where we could be growing plants that can suck up the CO2 in the atmosphere. And,
you're exactly right. 45% of the world's landmass is used to grow crops. 45% of the world, the entire Earth's landmass, almost half of the Earth is used, the landmass at least, is used to grow crops to feed just the livestock. So if we cut out the middleman, if we stop paying for these products and just stop breeding those animals into existence for our consumption to begin with, then we have currently in production enough crops to end world starvation 3 times over. Obviously you only need to end starvation one time before everyone's fed, but that just goes to show we could reduce currently how much we're producing by about 2/3 because we overproduce so much and we waste it away to just feed to this cow that eats 6 to 12 times what a human eats, and then chop off its limbs and eat it for one fleeting moment.
I've heard though that like pigs and cows would probably be extinct if we didn't. I've heard that. I don't know if that's
Right.
true. I don't know the research.
No, that's a really good. That's a really good
But,
point.
like, cows and pigs would be extinct if we didn't fucking breed them, because they're not like they don't like the pigs we breed. They're not boars. You know, they're not the fighting.
Right.
thing.
The animals that we've selectively genetically engineered to put into the environment and we've domesticated.
We've made them to be docile and
Exactly, yeah.
and just fat.
They
fat.
naturally trust us. They're naturally very subservient and cooperative, and then we betray that trust by slitting their throat,
Sorry.
right, and chop up. No, it's true though. It is. It is. Yeah, it's almost hysterically ridiculous. It's like a satire we're living in, you know? Yeah, but
I laugh at like death and horrible shit. I don't know.
I got a pretty dark sense of humor
'cause I'm
myself.
like, yeah, that's life there. I mean, it's part of it.
Yeah. So what's not part of the natural life cycle is forcibly breeding these animals into existence that nature brought in, by the millions, and then just wasting away all these land and resources to then feed the gluttonous people of first world nations. And that's mostly who's eating these products. We're taking the land of second and third world countries, people who mostly eat a plant-based diet because the scarcity of resources available because their land's been depleted because of our industrial practices, and then we use up their land for our livestock and ship the livestock so we can eat the American diet 3 times a day, pouring over our bacon.
Taking their land probably with deals that fucked them over like pretty fucking hard.
It's no longer quite as arable as it was. There's all these horrible repercussions for what we're doing to other places in the world.
I'm not going to try to convince you that. I'm not going to.
Hey, you sound like a nice guy. You sound like a really smart, sweet guy.
You're right, but I'm
Yeah.
still going to eat meat for a little bit at least.
It's tough, and I like to encourage people to ask themselves, are my taste buds alone a fleeting palatary pleasure worth more than the life of a sentient individual? Put yourself in the victim's shoes.
I'll think about that the next time I
Nice.
bite into a steak and probably be like,
I think the more people kind of consider that, the more there's going to be a natural inclination to, detest that type of product.
I could use less of that high calorically dense food.
Yeah, and you can get a lot of calories. That's the cool thing about a plant-based diet is you can still lose weight and maintain your ideal weight range and eat tons and tons of plant foods. My girlfriend eats tons of pasta. We eat tons of pizza and stuff like that, but we're trying to stick to as much of whole food plants versions of those as possible, and we find that we feel way better. We don't get that full sick feeling. We just feel good. We feel healthy and rejuvenated.
Yeah, when I just eat like yogurt with some fruit and like some eggs, I feel full and satiated, but I actually have energy. I'm not like, oh, I need a nap. Fuck.
Yeah.
Food is supposed to give you energy.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and eggs actually have as much cholesterol in a single egg as a Big Mac. So there's no reason. The human body produces its own cholesterol, added cholesterol from outside sources. That's what causes the leading killers of humans, which is heart disease.
Now, hold on to that.
Yeah?
Well, I mean, if you're not already consuming a lot of cholesterol, it's not a big deal. But when you consume soluble fiber with cholesterol, that triggers your liver to start pulling cholesterol out of your arteries, actually. So if you already have a buildup of cholesterol, then you need to actually eat soluble fiber with cholesterol to clear your arteries out.
Interesting.
It's a weird signaling process that I'm not sure exactly all the mechanisms, but
Right.
like the soluble fiber collects all the cholesterol, and then your liver wants to send out things to do something with the cholesterol, but it can't, so then it pulls more cholesterol out of your arteries.
Okay, interesting. I haven't heard that before. I highly recommend checking out if you want. There's some peer-reviewed data on health here, and you can just type in, in these sources right here. I would go to nutritionfacts.org. You can type in cholesterol, and it'll have quick, short, all peer-reviewed, randomized controlled studies, the top tier of scientific research to show you kind of a breakdown of the most recent studies and science on the leading killers of humans, which is heart disease and clogged arteries.
Wait, are there any plants with cholesterol in them?
No,
No, yeah,
if you're eating whole food plants, no cholesterol.
Cholesterol is avocados have cholesterol?
I know they have oils in them, but they're healthy oils and fats. Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any plant-based cholesterol.
You can get like coconut oil, I think. Like if you're doing a concentrated oily version of something, we didn't evolve drinking oil, you're sucking down oil. So that's gonna have adverse health effects. But the new documentary Game Changers, have you heard of that?
I've heard of it, yeah.
Okay, it's really good. They talk a little bit about this, how our top performing athletes are practicing a whole food plant-based diet and they're clearing out their arteries like that.
Well, people have the misconception that like athletes, the primary, you need protein, right?
Right.
But no, carbohydrate is actually really what you need to be performing at the
Right.
top of your game. You need to have your glycogen stores like kept good. You can't, because your glycogen stores can like deplete over time if you're training high intensity.
Mm-hmm.
You need to eat a lot of carbohydrates.
Totally.
Like I think it's close to 600 to 800 grams of carbohydrate a day, but depending on how intensely you're training, and yeah, the best.
Yeah.
You got to get like maybe some juice in there, like right before you get into that high intensity thing. But before that, you want to be eating all the complex, whole grain, slow burn carbohydrates. And
Yeah, high carb, low fat diet is showing to be the optimal diet for all humans. Yep. Yeah.
but complex
Pretty
carbs.
cool.
Complex carbs. I'm a food and nutrition science major, so.
Oh, right on, man.
Yeah, this shit is really interesting, and I will check out.
Okay, did you grab a card already?
Yeah, I got
Oh, okay, good. I didn't know if you grabbed one. Cool, right on, right on.
Jackson, thanks.
It's nice meeting you. Hey,
you
thanks so
going?
much for chatting with me.
Of course, man.
Have a good day.